Welcome to the Get It Done podcast. I'm your host, Jimi Ryan. Today we have Alec Hansen. Alec is an 18-year mortgage veteran pro. He's earned his stripes, as we say. But back in his heyday, he was a top 1% loan originator. He's done over $100 million in production. Started out as a receptionist. Really love his come up story. We're going to get into it. But I also know him as the author of the book Bypassed. Go pick up yourself a copy. And he's also the host of, and I'm a big fan of this podcast. It's called the Modern Lending Podcast. And Alec, welcome to the Get It Done podcast.
Yes, Jimmy. Awesome, man. Of course. Thank you for having me on, dude.
Hey, for sure, brother. So, we were talking a little bit, ahead of this. Does this edification of you really sum you all up? But I guess, what would you add to, there's a lot of things, host of a podcast, you're author of a book. You've been in the business for 18 years. I guess, is there any more, check boxes or little accolades that maybe I missed?
I've had a really great career, including, the ups and downs of this crazy industry with the credit crisis and all that stuff. Got really lucky with a lot of great mentors. And I feel like I've worked hard to check a lot of boxes, so I did hit the top originator, got on Scotsman's Guide. In fact, in 2004, I was the rookie originator in the country. They used to have rookie originator on there, and that was fun. And I used to, collect those plaques. And then I decided to get into leadership. And actually what happened, it's a funny story, but I was at a chairman's elite type event in Hawaii, right? Like where they bring everybody up and you get the awards. And I realized that I saw actually my dad, who was a senior leader at the time, handing out the awards. And my trajectory in my personal career shifted, and I decided I wanted to be the one that handed out the awards. Because just for me, validating other people and celebrating their successes became more of a priority. So I left personal production in 2008, handed off to my team, but didn't keep it in my name. You know how a lot of originators today that it's all in their name and these giant teams. And I'm like, yeah, you're not really, that's cute, but led my branch to a lot of success. I was very proud in 2010, my branch, it was kind of a mega branch, but it funded over $1 billion. And that was a big deal for me. I really wanted to hit that billion. We did $1.05 billion. And then I got into, growing other branches and growing teams across the country. And so, right now I'm really proud. I serve as the senior vice president of the Pacific Southwest division for loanDepot. We have, a pretty strong diversified network of branches. We funded close to 7 billion last year, but that's also like 2020. So it's a different thing, right? I funded 85 million my first year, but that was 2004. That was a gigantic year. So it's like you got to put an asterisk next to it, even though I'm like really proud of the team and all that stuff. I feel like everyone's like, oh, I did all this. I'm like, well, the market helped a little. So that's kind of me in a nutshell right now.
Well, brother, there's so much that I want to unpack on that. 2004 Rookie of the Year. That's so epic. I love that. They don't do Rookies of the Year anymore.
No, but I think they should.
I wouldn't win it. I'm not a rookie either, but I guess why would I personally care about it? But I don't know why they would. Brother, $1 billion in loans to be a part of a team that does that. So many different things I want to break down. So the Get It Done podcast really is all about the come up story. And, people see you now like, look, you're an author of a book. Yeah. You're doing this epic podcast. You're having on some just epic guests, but they don't, a lot of times don't see that, that first parts of it. They don't see all the work that was done, to really set yourself up. And brother, I'm a fan of yours. I listened to you and I know that you started out as a receptionist and look, literally pounding the pavement. Talk about those early years. And actually I want to go even back further is nobody comes into mortgage and is like, nobody comes into it like, I want to do this. No 4-year-old says I want to be a mortgage loan officer, for instance. They want to be a doctor, lawyer, or astronaut. So how did mortgage come to you? How was it presented to you in your life?
So it was one of those things where my dad had been a mortgage banker his whole career for like 30 years. He's almost on his 40th year. And in college, I had a very limited schedule for my last semester. So I asked for a job and, and I was up in Northern California and my family's in Southern California. And so I actually started shipping loan files in downtown Oakland for Countrywide. And I would go in once a week and I would help them ship files. And then I stayed up there that summer and worked, and I was a processor 3 in a regional operations center, and I ordered appraisals.
What's
So
shipping files, by the way? What does that job consist of?
Packaging files into boxes and literally like sending them out on FedEx and stuff to get picked up. Like it's literally not sexy. It's like the worst job ever.
It was actually shipping. Like it was like because
yes.
It's called shipping now, but that's the term means something different.
No, we had paper files. We had paper files, and they had to leave the office, and so I literally would go in there and package files, and you can imagine like one of these containers had like 60, 70 loan packages in it. But yeah, man, it was literally as old school as you get. And then I would order, and then that summer I ordered appraisals, and it was a DOS based system, no mouse. You opened up a file, you tabbed through the screens, and then I put the credit card in, and then I handed the file to the processor 2 next to me until I was going to burn the whole place down because my ADD was just like out of control.
How long did you last at that? Like I could
see
myself
a week and a half. And then I went down to the sales office, and I was like, I'll do anything because there's a sales office on the first floor. I'll do anything you want. I just can't. I feel like I'm Milton. I'm going to burn the place down. Like, where's my stapler? Like, I was losing it. And so the office downstairs, like the ladies were like, "Oh, do you mind working weekends?" And I'm like, "Do you know what I'm doing up there? Like weekends, I don't care. Like, get me out of that operations center." And so I literally sat on a new construction, so brand new builder. It was they took naval housing and they converted it into condos. And I sat there in Vallejo and I took loan apps on the weekends. A dude got shot on the street next to me up there while I was taking loan apps.
Wow. And I mean, so, okay, military housing, I'm not the most familiar with it, but if I'm picturing this, I think of like a little shack. Like
it's not roomy. They weren't roomy condos.
Yeah. A very humble type of a space and being converted to condos. And I'm sure the guy was just, I mean, how much money was the builder making off of this? I'm sure
you know what? I was so naive. All I was told to do was go take apps, and people would walk into the builder and I'd take apps, and then I'd show up on Monday with a briefcase full of apps, and I'd be like, what do I do with these? And they'd be like, well, let's start calling these people back. And so, but I cut my teeth. I learned how to structure loans. And then I ended up graduating that next semester. Actually, this is a super funny side story. This is the day my dad fired me. So I was working for a summer, and then I had a semester left. And before I graduated, a semester left. So I decided I was going to keep working because I was making good money, and I was working the track, and it was weekends. So I was like, hey, I had class Tuesday, Thursdays. I'll work the communities on the weekends. I asked my boss, like, are you cool? And they're like, dude, you hustle. Like, that sounds great. And then I get an email from HR that I've been terminated. And I call up HR and I go, you can't fire me. Like, what did I do wrong? Like, I'm doing a great, like my boss says I'm doing amazing. And they look in the file and they're like, oh yeah, your dad says to go enjoy your last semester and you're terminated. And so he fired me, wouldn't let me work my last semester of college, which, that's kind of cool, but I'm still kind of pissed he fired me.
I mean, that does suck. I mean, I would be like, look, I don't want to do this college thing at all. But here, how were you far along? Like, were you within, like, you could see graduation in sight and to get your degree, which is important, a lot more important to an older generation. But
I had a really weird college in the sense that, like, I came in with a million AP classes, and I took a first semester. I'm like an idiot. I took class from 8 to 5. I'm like, well, that's like what a job is. So I just took class from 8 to 5, and I came out of my first semester like fully blasted apart. And then I went and finally talked to a career person, and they're like, yeah, you're so far ahead in units that you can take classes, one class Tuesday, one class Thursday, and graduate a semester early. And so I was like, great. So the rest of my college was literally Tuesday, Thursday classes, like massive long weekends. And I still graduated a semester early. So
wow.
I guess my dad wanted me to enjoy it. Oh, it was interdisciplinary studies at Berkeley.
Huh. Interesting. Do you use that at all?
The only reason I took that major was because Berkeley's such a fun school. I got to create my own curriculum. So I built a major around urban development and business management. So I studied cities, and I studied leadership, and I got to take all the business classes that were entertaining, and I got to get away from calculus and computer science and things that I don't like.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was awesome. I loved it.
I mean, that certainly can transition to you today. So you get fired by your dad
Yep.
in the best way possible. You
Yep.
enjoy your last semester of college. You graduate. What then? So you were just sitting in on the builders,
No, so that was in NorCal. So when I graduated, I moved back to Southern California, and I graduated like December 21st, and I started full time January 4th.
Wow.
So I just went right into, a lot of people do like, the European vacation and all this stuff. And I got to work, and I was a receptionist in a strip mall, making $90 a loan, doing HELOCs.
That was awesome. What bank? What was
it?
It
Countrywide.
Yeah,
it was Countrywide. Countrywide back in 2003 was in strip malls. Like, they weren't a behemoth yet. They didn't have the market share. They didn't have this massive brand position. I was literally in Angelo Mozilla was like, put you in strip malls. Wow. So I sat next to Whole Foods.
Wow. And so, okay, I know your story a little bit, but like, for instance, I know about your stories of going into, people's offices and just like basically knocking on doors and, taking people out to coffee and like, hey, by the way, you should probably do this. When did you start cutting your teeth on, I would say, the harder part of the job? I mean, if you're sitting in a strip mall, you're waiting for people to come to you. And like, that's all great, but also at the same time, you're making $90 a loan. How many loans?
Yeah, you're making minimum wage, $90 a loan. Right. And my mentor, this guy named Kevin Buddy, who I worked for, I became his assistant after 6 months because I said, hey, let me actually get into the meat with you. And I would sit in his office and listen to him talk to customers. I'd watch him go out and speak at events. And after 6 months of kind of working behind him, I said, hey, I'm ready to jump. I want to go 100% commission. I'm ready to go. And, I dove into the field, and I did exactly what he said. And this is, by the way, we had massive refi booms in 2003 and 4. It was just like 2020. I mean, by the numbers, like it was the same amount of crazy business. And he was like, you're going to go talk to realtors. You're going to go out and get 8 business cards from realtors every single day. And then you can come back and work on deals. And so that's what I did. I went out and I went to broker previews and open houses and pop-ins. And I was terrified. I have massive insecurity, call reluctance, and fear of rejection, like the most in the world. I was bullied as a little kid. Like that stuff has just been like, I'm just like terrified. Can't cold call someone for my life still. And but I knew that if I wanted business, I needed to go build relationships. I needed to go get their trust. And so I just went out and shook hands. And actually, it's funny, Jimmy, I hacked my way through it all, because instead of selling, because I was so insecure, instead of selling and coming in with flyers and marketing ideas and trying to pitch myself, I didn't do any of that stuff because I didn't want to get rejected. So all I did was walk in there and introduce myself. In fact, I used to not introduce myself as a lender until a realtor thought I was a buyer and toured me through the whole house. And then I was like, I can't tell him I'm a lender now. Like I have to just never meet this person again. It's all over. But so then I started to introduce myself as a lender, because then everyone gets like, they look down and they get all like, oh, you're not like a buyer. But the hack was, after 4 to 6 months of literally just meeting people and building relationships, I learned this equation, which was, once they learn your name, you've kind of crested the first milestone. When you walk in their house and they're like, oh, Alec, that's the first milestone. And the second is when you offer them things and you see if your relationship's there enough where they'll take it. Like, hey, I'm working this weekend and I got a trunk full of waters. Do you ever want any waters for open houses? Do you ever do any financing flyers? I never see any out there. And as your relationship builds, they say no in the beginning because you don't have a relationship. But as it builds, they start saying things like yes, or hey, I'm using my buddy. That makes me feel kind of awkward to take your water. And eventually I had such solid relationships with people that I was able to ask for business without it being weird, without it being creepy or pushy. I mean, I remember one guy, I was like, dude, like, why don't we work together? And he was like, you know what? I don't know. We should work together. You're awesome. And I was like, dude, you're awesome. And like, we're best friends. And so, the hack was relationship building is the key, right? It always has been. And I kind of fell into that through not selling, because I never put myself in a position where they felt uncomfortable, and I got to avoid that as well.
Boy, that's awesome that you say, like, look, awesome. We're best friends. Let's just do it. It was natural. Did Kevin Buddy give you this this insight, or did he pretty much just say, hey, go out and talk to realtors, go out and do it, go to open houses?
He just said, go out and do it. He just said, look, you have one job, and go out and talk to realtors, ask for business, and set meetings with realtors, tell them why you're great. And, I also, the really cool thing about mortgage is that if you ask top producers how they do what they do, they just tell you. They just tell you. So I went to all of the best producers at Countrywide, and I was like, can I buy you coffee? Can you, and they all told me all their different strategies. And then the really cool part is you kind of get to personalize that. You sit down and go like, I really like that, but I would do this spin on it. I like that strategy. I got to incorporate that. And, there's the top people have no insecurity because they know you're not going to execute.
Right.
So they don't care.
I know I was just going to say, like, yeah, you can, here's the whole thing. Try and do it.
Here's my playbook. Good luck.
Yeah. I mean, right. Exactly. And, I think that a lot of this actually ties to, like, look, Kevin Buddy would just, go talk to realtors. Like, here you go, green light, go for it, figure it out. You talked a little bit about being, insecure and, being bullied as a kid. And that's that's a place I really like to go with people. Why? Because I think a lot of us were. I think that a lot of us really struggled with an early childhood that maybe wasn't that great, or, we all have these big, huge dreams that we want to accomplish. And a lot of times that can be looked at, not like, here, we're not conforming with the general school, the general population. A lot of times that can lead to bullying or being made fun of or whatever it is. Can you tell me about a time that maybe you were bullied as a kid and how that has maybe changed and affected you to being this relentless, go show up at every open house type of mortgage loan officer?
My upbringing is like a lot of people, where I wanted to be in the cool club. And, I think that's a very normal feeling for kids. You want to be liked, accepted, you want to be popular, whatever that means. And then, at some point I realized, no, I was the punching bag amongst the popular kids. I was the guy that they would want to hang out, but I was there for kind of comic relief or whatever it was. And some of that stuff might be in my head. I look back and I'm like, how much of this did they even know? Because for a while I demonized everybody and and I'm like, do they even know? I mean, I have a 9-year-old, like, is he aware? Like, I don't know, he's having a good time, but I don't know how aware he is. So I just go, so I let a lot of that stuff go through my own growth process, but then I also through it, I let go of caring what other people think. And I don't know when. It wasn't an aha moment. It wasn't like, I woke up one day and like, I don't care anymore. But I remember like in junior high, I just refused to hang out with those guys anymore. And then I went and played basketball at recess and lunch. And I was the sweaty kid because I would go play basketball during recess and lunch. And, and you get sweaty and you come to class and you're kind of, but like, I just stopped caring. And I was like, no, I'm just going to go do this and have fun here. And I'm going to do this. And, I don't know. It's just when I look at my path through that, and I look who I became through, high school sports and college and onward, I just stopped caring. And that doesn't mean I still don't want acceptance and I'm not afraid of rejection anymore. Like, of course, all that stuff's still like down here. But I also realized like when I got way more comfortable in my own skin, way more comfortable with who I am. And doesn't mean that doesn't hurt when someone rejects me. So I still remember, and I'll never forget, I pulled up as a 23-year-old in my Honda Civic with my crappy suit with shoulder pads to a top realtor's open house. And it was the first time that I saw in the door that the guy was in the house. And I was like, oh my God, I get to finally meet this guy, top performer. Here we go. And I turned on jock jams and I'm like slapping my face and I'm getting pumped. And I drove away. I turned the car back on and drove away. So afraid of like just even saying hi. So like, I say these things like, oh, I live my life now. I don't care. It's like, no, all that stuff, you still have to deal with it all the time. It gets easier, but like, I didn't like have a triumphant moment. But I just recognized those people that are going to like me are going to like me. The people that aren't are not. But if I don't show up and engage, there's no way to know. Man, and fast forward to video and digital and social media, and now we can do it all faster. Where people through a content strategy can get to know me and go, dude, I like that guy. I like his vibe. He'd be fun to work with. Or I really am annoyed by him. I don't agree with anything he's saying, and they just mute me and move on.
Brother, I think that a lot of people would find it really hard to believe. Someone that does a podcast almost every day, like, brother, you're unstoppable. Like you're doing a Facebook Live like every day. You're literally putting yourself out there every day and doing something that's somewhat uncomfortable. I mean, so I guess my follow-up with that is that like, look, you along the way, this did die. Yes, you stopped caring, but like, look, where's the fear of rejection? I guess where does call reluctance play into your day-to-day life right now? Because outside looking in is like, you're perfect, you know. If someone didn't really know you though, like, and just was seeing you from outside, but that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah,
I get that all the time, and people don't know that I'm an introvert, and they're like, "Oh, you can't be an introvert. You're on all these podcasts and you talk a lot." And I'm like, "You don't understand. It doesn't mean I don't like people. It doesn't mean I don't want to talk to people. It just means that I need to go take a nap afterwards." Whereas like extroverts just get more pumped up the whole time. Here's where like the stuff still exists, right? So I'll put out a lot of content as a strategy. I'll make a lot of messages about my leadership style or about the company. And I'm using that to show people what it's like to work here, right? To draw people in, just as a loan officer should do it, and to describe how it would be to work with them as a loan pro, like what the service they're going to get, what the experience they're going to get, the whole thing. But there's also the underlying part of this, which is you still have to call people. You still have to connect to humans. If you're a loan officer, and I'll parallel this, and you make a ton of content and you're putting out a podcast and you're great videos, but you never call on realtors for business and you never call past customers for referrals, your business is going to just stagnate, or it's not going to reach the where it could go. And the same is true in my line of work as a brand ambassador and as a recruiting leader and as a mentor coach. You know, if I don't go and actually call people that I think would be good fits here, that I watch on social, that I engage with, that I'm like, man, this person should work here. Our culture, our tools, they would thrive here. And if I never call them, then, and I'm sitting, what, they're going to call me? Like, unless their platform's burning down, maybe they will. But that's where the reluctance and the fear still resides. Mm-hmm. It's like I could have a 2-3 year relationship with someone digitally and be like, oh man, this person would thrive here. And I still get freaked out to call that person. Even though we've talked on social, we've DM'd, you know, I've done as much as I could to build enough warm connection there. It's still now I still make the calls because that's my job.
You're right. You still do the work, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's the funny part is like hard work is hard. No one ever said work was going to be easy. No one ever said our job is supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be everything we love. And so, you know, you still got to do the stuff that makes you uncomfortable, but that's where it still exists with me is, you know, you still got to put the work in.
What I love about that is that, you know, this isn't like, hey, I started a podcast, I've made it, you know, or like, hey, I'm doing lots of these lives, I get a lot of this interaction. Hey, I've made it. I'm not picking up the phone ever again. You know, I'm just like, you know, I'm retired. No, you're still out there working it and still doing it. And I want to just go back to this really quick. So I've had to search this within myself, actually, is that, you know, I have a feeling of sometimes unbelonging and sometimes that, you know, I'm stepping out into myself and I know it's the realest, truest me. And I feel on fire when it is me, when I am actually like letting my heart out and telling my story, much like how you're doing it right now. You're just press and play. This isn't like thought or contrived.
Nope.
At what point do you just say, I just don't care anymore? And also, at what point do you fully embrace it to the fact where you just like, I guess doing the work isn't nearly as hard. You can actually be moving forward without the fear of, hey man, I really don't belong. I'm just, you know, I'm saying words, but I'm not having any traction. How do you just, I guess, supersede that? I don't know if I asked that question the best way, but do you know what I'm getting at?
Yeah, and I'll answer it how I heard it because there's angles here. You know, imposter syndrome, right? So when I was like 23, 24 originating, you know, I didn't know anything. But what I could rely on was the fact that I cared, was the fact that I had access to the knowledge. So it wasn't like I just didn't know it personally, but I had access to how to structure deals. I had access to solutions and underwriters. And so really what I had was my conviction. I had my conviction that if you worked with me, I would bust my ass and be the absolute best professional I could be from a customer service perspective, from a solution perspective. You might have a question and I might not know the answer. And I will say, I'm going to go get that answer for you in 30 minutes and come back. But I had my conviction. And so it's really resting in what you have to deliver. And if that's customer service, if that's care, if that's whatever it ends up being, that's, in my opinion, where people need to land on. You might not have the 18 years of Alec's experience and funding, being on Scotsman's Guide for 6 years and having $1 billion brand. Like, you might not have checked the boxes yet, but that doesn't matter, because you might be the best damn, most empathetic, caring, thoughtful originator. And sometimes that's what our customers need. They don't need to know it all. They need someone who cares, who's going to be empathetic, who's going to be in the process with them, versus maybe handing the loan off to a minion. I mean, that's my criticism of teams all the time. Not that they're not great and they do wonderful things. They do. And the best originators in the world have exceptional teams. But sometimes somebody just wants the person. And if that's you and that's what you can offer, then you should be strong in that. And that's kind of your value proposition is, you're not a handoff. You're mine. I take you to the finish line. We're in it to the end. And so I think whether it's translating that into another language of like, well, starting a podcast or doing a video series. Well, I don't have any street cred, so why should I do video series? I'm not as charismatic as this person, so why should I be on video? All that's just bullshit. It's just a lie that's stopping you from prospecting. I didn't have any business walking into the top realtors open houses. None, as a 23-year-old kid. None. I had no experience. I was not equipped, but I knew what I stood for. And I knew that eventually, because I was young, their loan officer was going to die before I was. So I was going to get a chance. And I just and that's what I told myself. It's just, you got to play the long game.
Excellent strategy. They're going to die before I do. So
I'm going to stay healthy and I'm going to outlive them.
But I think it comes down to that you had a deep faith that, like, look, I might not be the prettiest, flashiest, whatever you want to call it. I don't have 10 years of experience, whatever it is. But look, I'm going to figure it out. If I get in knee deep with these people, I know I'm going to take care of them. I'm going to treat them right, and I'll find the way. And you just got sure of that, so much so that, like, by the way, did you ever turn around and go back to that the
Nope.
top realtors?
No.
Was it?
I saw him at another
again?
house. No, I saw him at another house. I definitely got into the mix. But I just, I dealt with what everyone deals with. By the way, Jimmy, it's the same stuff when someone says, I don't want to get on video.
I love talking about it. That's why I want to talk about it, because I think that we get a lot of listeners that are just absolutely so gun shy about this. And they're just, because it's some lie inside of them that maybe they believed a really long time ago. And if you act as though what you believe is true, and maybe there's some issue you got to work through. Maybe it's bullying when you were a kid or whatever it was, something that makes you feel not belonging. And look, me too. I've had to deal with it. I've had to go there. But at the end of the day, do it or don't. But stop talking. Just do it. Get it done.
Well, here's the truth. So everyone starts with, I don't like how I look and sound. And that's where the excuses start. And then you have to peel that away and be like, do you have friends? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, do they see you? Do they see your face? Yes. Do they hear your voice? Yes. And do they run away screaming? No. Okay. So they don't care. So you care, but they don't care. And then you have to realize that's true for everything. Everyone cares about what they look and sound like, not what I do or you do. And so you rip that one away. And then you say, well, I'm not entertaining. And then you have to just understand, you go, have you ever been part of a personality profile test? And we all have, right? I mean, did you ever do DISC, Jimmy, or do you ever do like Enneagram, any of that stuff?
Brother, I'm a 99D, 99I.
So
yes.
I'm a DI too, and my I is a fake, but it's DI. And so guess what? Guess what DIs like to hang out with? DIs. Like when I learned this when I was like pursuing realtors, right? Because a lot of realtors are I's. They're very social. They're very outgoing. And so I can fake that I, but I'd rather just get down to business. Like I want to have, like, let's just talk business. We can talk about family later, but like, let's talk business. Let's get into the meat. And so realtors and referral partners that were D's appreciated me. I didn't come in for small talk. I didn't ask them questions about their dogs. I was like, let's close loans. How can I help? So when you open that up and peel it all the way back, we realize there's a fundamental truth of humanity is we all have unique audiences. that are attracted to our style, our energy, our way of thinking, our way of communicating. And look at comedians. There's comedians that are storytellers, comedians that are shock and awe. There's comedians that are dry and just absolute like baseline monotone. And all of those people reach an audience. And so someone who's an engineer is going to hate you and I. Maybe not like they'll still want to hang out with us, but like they don't want us doing their loan. We're too fast. We're moving too quick to the decision. They're like, hey, slow down. I want to look at this line item. What does this mean? Why are you collecting days of interest? What's impounds mean? Why do I have to have that?
Me and you are like, just sign it and we'll talk about it later. Okay. It's all good. Like,
so exactly. So someone who's like, well, I'm not charismatic, or I'm like, no, you don't understand. There's a whole thousands and thousands of humans and referral partners and customers that want your style. And by the way, demographic, male, female, black, like they want what they want. And you're so arrogant and thinking that like we can provide everything for everybody. And we watch as humans just do what they do. And so I'm like, get over your insecurity. It's not about you and no one cares. And you have a damn unique audience waiting for you that is attracted to your style, how you think, how you communicate. And so there's really the only thing that's holding you back is the same stuff that's always held you back, which is just this fear of starting, insecurity, fear of rejection. Someone's not going to like me. Even though you just heard me say there's 1,000 people that are going to love you. You're worried that the one person that won't. And there really is no magic pill for that, Jimmy, except you said earlier, it's just to go.
Right.
Just to go do it. That's the only thing that there's no course you can take. There's no special coaching. You just got to play.
You just got to play. And your first one isn't going to be the best. Your second one is going to be the best. But as you progress, you're going to get better.
They're going to be terrible.
They are. Honestly, I can't even watch my very first video. I can't do it. It's god awful terrible. It's like basically it's a commercial. It's like a commercial. Like, what was I thinking? Go to JimRyanMortgage.com. Like literally that was it. Jim Ryan, the man who died, by the way, I put him to death, which actually that's a great segue into here. What I'd like to talk to you about is who is the real you? Who is the most authentic, realist you? Because you're talking about this, like, look, we're going to attract a certain person to us. And look, if we're 99 like I am, we're going to attract those types of people. But if you're not actually acting as if like your most truest self, if you're faking it, you're not going to attract those people. I interviewed Barry Habib, for instance, and he talks about this a lot. He says it like this: listen, Jimmy, not everybody's your customer. Not everybody's your customer. And the same thing with realtor referral partners or whatever. Not everybody's there for you. How do you just shed away all the fakeness and just be 100% authentic you?
I'll answer that a couple different ways. Number one, if you're serving customers, it's not about you, right? And we all know this. So I'm a geek. I play computer games. I love Marvel. I grew up on comic books. If I'm serving a customer and I don't care about that stuff, then for my service to them, that stuff sits over here in the corner. Like I'm not bringing that to the party. I'm there in service of them. With my referral partners, if they want to have small talk, I'm in for them because I'm serving them. But at the same time, like all of us are multifaceted, and I think as we present, we start to hide those facets of our humanity. And so if you're into like gaming or into comic books or into, I've owned a CrossFit gym for 13 years and I love Olympic lifting and I love powerlifting. You could be into that, showcase that. If you're a parent and you love parenting, showcase your humanity. I always say, don't be a billboard. No one can connect to a billboard. Be a human. And at the same time, just recognize that when you're in service to somebody else, just be in service to them and don't feel like you need to insert some stuff in there. But when it comes to showcasing your brand, building an online brand, playing in the space, the less you showcase. See, I always share it this way because, big box retail companies, most mortgage LOs, they tend to be like just walking billboards. And I love loanDepot and I'm a huge loanDepot fan. I wouldn't work here, et cetera. Right. But like, I'm also Alec Hansen. I'm a human being and I have likes and dislikes and cares. And our loan officers, I see a lot of their social stuff and it's all just repurposing corporate jargon. And I go, there's a difference between proud of your company and not being authentic. And you can be proud and authentic, but there's a lot of people who are just literally regurgitating whatever the marketing department put out. And I keep coaching people. I go, I can't see you. I don't know what makes you tick. Why are you in the mortgage business? Why should I work with you? What makes you different or special? And that's really where, this conversation opens up a lot bigger. So, I mean, you'll see a lot of that stuff in my content. Like I do, some of my music is Legends of Zelda and just fun stuff that I grew up with that is part of what I am. And some people don't know because they've never heard that song before. But then other people hear the intro of my podcast and they're like, oh, that's from Star Wars, you sneaky dude.
I knew it was. I was going to ask you. It's the
Cantina song, yeah,
whatever. Yeah. I knew it was. I was going to ask you that. Some people make fun of mine and say it sounds like the Meow Mix commercial. They're older generation that would make fun of that. But I listened to it. I was like, no, this is a sick beat. And but on yours, it's just like, this is Star Wars. And I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Like, you don't get much bigger than me. You do, but I heard that and I was like, no way. This can't be this. I want to go back to, though, your, being the most authentic, realist you. I feel like a lot of people will just literally, just like you said, regurgitate the corporate, stuff.
Yeah.
And look, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. If that's all you got, I think it's better than nothing. However, who the heck are you? Who the heck are you? You. Not who is your company. They're gonna know you, like you, trust you. But the thing is that you are part of all three of those things. Like your company too, that will get you somewhere if it's a good company, good reputable company. But I got this from Dale Vermillion. Dale Vermillion, he lives by Philippians 2:3. I know you do. He's how can you not love Dale? But Philippians 2:3 says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others over yourself." So Dale is the type 2. He's definite D, definite I, and he tends to steamroll people. Like if you get him going on something, you better catch up because you're going to get run over. But that's because what he does is he puts people on, the train towards home ownership, whereas they're going down the train of inaction. Like this is not the way. You got to put yourself on this train. And the thing is that, and why I say this is because if you're doing it for selfish gain or something that's fake, they're not going to believe you. They're not going to jump on your train. But if you're actually doing it for their own good, they might believe you. They might go down that road. And hey, if you're fake, that ain't going to work. But if you're real authentic, you really care. You're really like, look, I want this for you so bad. Go down this way. That's going to come out of your voice. And I think that's the realest, truest self. And speak to that a little bit more, and then I'm gonna move on.
Well, I mean, it's a blend of stuff as always. Like you have to understand your why of the business. I mean, period. Because we get so transactional, we get so caught up in the work. It's stressful. It's repetitive. Month in, month out. All of a sudden, like 4 years have gone by, and you're like, "What has happened to me?" So understanding and figuring out how you can be intentional to circle back to your why of like, what gets you up in the morning? Why are you excited? Sometimes it's as simple as you like solving problems. And in mortgage, you get to solve problems all day long. Sometimes it really is about the people and it's about the families you impact and the person you just debt consolidated and changed their life, but you really got to tap into that why, or else, to your point, Jimmy, everyone sees through it. You're a car salesman or, you're a cheesy salesman and everyone's just like, you're not here for me. But at the same time, it's okay to be in it for you. Like it was funny. My best month ever originating my first year was $13 million, 13.5. And the way I got there was after prospecting and working my tail off for months and months and months and months, I was engaged. I was getting married. And so I sent a letter to all of the agents I'd been prospecting, all the top 100 agents and all my past customers. And on the top of it, it said the $10 million challenge. And it was a picture of me, like, in a suit. And it said, I'm getting married in July. I've never funded over 10 million. My goal for June is to fund over 10 million. And I'd love your help. And I'm declaring this challenge to the world, and so it was about me, but what happened was through all that relationship building, business flowed in, and even business from people that would never refer to me again, but they liked me, but they had their guy or gal. And so it was like, it was they threw me a deal that time. Cause they were like, hey, his kid's getting married, so
help them out.
You can't, we're all in the mortgage industry to provide for our families, to make money. So they're selfish. We don't do loans. You don't get our kids don't eat. So
Right.
I think it's okay to hold both of those in the same hand, in the same palm, but you just can't forget that, you know, we're here to serve others, whether you're in leadership or mortgage. And I remember my dad, who's very smart. I was a Berkeley graduate with a chip on my shoulder, thinking I was super smart, and I got into mortgage. Right. So you know what's coming is, I went out and started meeting realtors. Well, and there's a spectrum of them. So I'll be first to say, like, I worked for some damn smart, really good realtors, and I worked for some realtors who couldn't spell mortgage. And I remember talking to my dad one day and being like, this is embarrassing. Like, I am a college graduate, like thinking I'm so smart and old. And, he just said, son, everybody serves somebody. So figure out who you're going to have to serve and do your best. He's like, you're never going to be the master. You're going to be in service. And we have, our faith is important to our family. And so, just bending the knee is the pride thing has always been kind of a theme for us. And so that hit me. And I was like, you know what? You're right. The game in mortgage is in service to others. Whether you do loans and you're in service to your partners and the customers, or you're in leadership and your services to the people around you, that's the whole game. And so, you can't fight, you can't avoid being in service. And it taught me a lot.
That's great advice. I mean, before destruction, the heart of man is haughty. But before, gosh darn it, I'm going to totally mess up the quote. But basically, yeah, you got to be humble before you're going to be anything. And in this is the quote that really I've stolen this from somebody somewhere along the years. The mortgage industry is a humbling industry. Period. End of story. And it just is, because you always have to suck up your pride. You always it's not your fault. It's your responsibility, and you're regularly put in a position where you got to handle some stuff. You got to solve the problem. You got to save it, step in and save the day. I want to talk 100%. About your book, Bypass.
Sure. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about it. Why should somebody buy it, and just what's it about? What are they going to learn about in this book?
Well, first, 100% of the proceeds go to Freedom Alliance to serve our vets. So I make $0 off the book. I wrote the book because in 2018, I had an aha moment in our industry, and, I've been in the industry a long time. And the aha moment was two things: the traditional way of doing business, which was go meet realtors, build relationships, get that likability, the consistency, the trust, was changing. And the reason it was changing is because our customers no longer need a realtor to start the process. And in 2003, and for years, the MLS was private. You didn't know what was for sale. You had no idea what was going on. The real estate community controlled the knowledge. And so any home buyer that wanted to start the process, we had Nokia phones with Snake on it. You didn't have tools. And so our industry and our sales cycle and our culture was built on one playbook. And it served us really well. And it still serves us well because realtors, the good ones, still have lots of influence they can exert. So it's not like a dead thing. But what happened, and it was happening in 2018, was margin compression was real. Companies were going out of business. Stearns went bankrupt. Home Street sold to Home Bridge. Provident Funding in SoCal just disappeared. They just basically shut it down, because it was just collapsing. And we may be coming into that again if rates continue to go up, but who knows? But the two trends that were self-evident to me was we become an internet-first society. Humans go online first for everything. They don't call their friends. They don't look for referrals. They go online. Now, they might get referrals from friends and family, but that's after they've gone online. The second thing was the real estate community was broken wide open. Realtor.com, Zillow, it all broke open. And so a customer now doesn't need a realtor to shop for a home. And some people find that offensive. I just find that as common sense. And so, when they don't need a realtor to shop for a home, guess what they're doing? They're doing the same thing they've done for 25, 30 years. They're going and falling in love with a home, and now they're pushing a button to see if they can afford it. When before, they would go fall in love with a home with a realtor, and the realtor would say, hey, call Jimmy to see if you can afford it. And so this digital customer has emerged. And what the digital customer is doing, and simplistically, if the sales cycle was the realtor was here, and then it was just the sales cycle, the realtor's now down here. This internet is now the top. And that's why no one should be surprised that Quicken has taken the #1 position across the country in many markets, including in purchase, because guess where they are? Where all the frickin' humans are. And so they're sweeping up and they're getting at bats. They're getting opportunities. They're getting better every time. It's stupid to think that like a Zillow Home Loans or a Quicken is getting worse. Their salespeople are getting better. They're getting more used to the objections that come up. Their brand's getting bigger in the eyes of the consumers. And so you realize that this is what's happening. And then I got passionate because my people, the in-market mortgage pros that are sitting in the communities serving customers, were getting bypassed, right? That's why the book title is that we're getting skipped. I mean, the biggest joke, Jimmy, is you go to people and go, well, how often do you compete against Quicken? And I love local mortgage pros that are like, oh, we don't even, our realtors don't even accept offers with Quicken on there. And then I show them the market track report and I'm like, yes, they are. Yes, you don't even know you're getting your ass kicked and they're beating you. And so, this means, in my opinion, that the skill set of the modern originator has to evolve. We have to have a digital branding strategy. We have to have a social media strategy. We have to have a local marketing strategy that goes direct to consumer and doesn't just sit behind realtors. We have to evolve our practice. We actually have to learn how to lead manage as opposed to letting the realtors manage leads and give them to me when they're in escrow. We have new things we have to evolve into. And so I was getting so fired up about it because I was watching really great mortgage pros lose business in 2018. And so this was something I felt I needed to give back.
Yeah, for sure. I love just everything you said about that. Especially with Quicken Loans, Steve Jacobson, CEO of Fairway, he says, in 2015, that's when they came out with Rocket Mortgage. Did we think it was going to work? Well, they did $90 billion last quarter. Last quarter. Does it work?
Everyone talks so much crap on that. Yeah.
I love too how you said, well, if you ask the local, mortgage loan officer, and look, I'm one of them too. I'm guilty of this too. Oh yeah, my people don't take a Quicken Loans. But this is the thing, that's because they didn't call you on it. They weren't in a position to even do it because they got to the customer first. All of a sudden, they're dealing with the loan with Quicken Loans, and maybe they're good, maybe they do a good job, maybe they don't, maybe whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. They're getting the at bat, and they're first. This is a great transition into branding, and this is something I think that I personally, I want to hear from you about this. How important is branding, not just for the company, the loanDepots, the Quickens, the Fairways of the world, but for the individual mortgage loan officer? How important is branding for the older crowd? Branding is just another word for reputation, but be flashy for the younger crowd. We're going to talk about it as brand. Alec, what do you say?
Well, everyone already has a brand. So every local pro, every person, every company already has a brand. For some people, though, that brand is invisibility and you're screwed because no one knows who you are. And so, but you don't get to not play. The game is playing. You're a player in the game. So whether you choose to play or not doesn't matter. You're still in the game. So I don't think it's a skill set that you can ignore. It's irrefutable that the majority of your customers are going to Google your ass and check out what you're about. Even if the realtor referred and said, Jimmy is a loan god, call him. They're gonna be like, great, thank you, I will. And they're gonna Google you as they call you, or even when they're on the phone with you. And so what they're bumping into is your brand. And if you have an old company up there that doesn't represent you, you've got, weird social media pictures, they're making a judgment. We cannot deny that we are a judgmental society. That's just a fact. We judge things instantaneously without even meaning to. We just judge. And so I sit back and say, this is happening. We need to figure out how to evolve into it. And clearly that doesn't mean building a brand. Now, there's strategy to that. There's thoughtfulness to that. It's not a hashtag. It's not a logo. It's not a slogan. None of those things are brands. It's repetition and consistency, and consistent messaging over time builds brand awareness. And so when a customer bumps into your brand or lack thereof, it's going to either reinforce your sale, reinforce you as a pro, or it's going to detract and they're going to push away from it. So digital reputation is everything. It's massively important.
Should every loan officer start a podcast?
No. because you should do what you like. Digital marketing, whether it's podcasting, video series, YouTube channel, Instagram, IGTV, all of this is a flyer that we used to hand out before the internet. Like it's just marketing and prospecting. It's brand building, impression building. So if you are into something, because I see a lot of loan officers start like an entrepreneurial based podcast. Fine, we're entrepreneurs, except we're not, because you don't own your own company and you're not. But you're a salesperson, and I love you. I love salespeople. You're just not an entrepreneur. It's when someone else you have a W-2, you're not an entrepreneur. That said, if you're into it, like I give examples all the time, Jimmy. Like I encourage people to start a podcast and interview local business owners in their community. I think that's rad. But start a podcast and interview agent best practices. Great. Build relationships, have some fun. But if you're doing it because you see other people doing it, you're making the same mistake. You need to do things that give you life, that are fulfilling. And you need to understand. So like in my podcast, I stay very clearly in my lane. My job in my podcast is to add value to mortgage originators. I want an originator to watch a podcast or listen and walk away with something tactical, inspirational, helpful. So I don't go outside of my lane. I don't go bring in, coaches and as an example or anything. Because I'm very focused on my channel. But should everybody do it? No, you should do it if you feel led to do it, if you're excited about it, if it's fun for you. But you should not do it because Alex said do it. But I don't think, Jimmy, you can forsake building brand. I don't think you can say, I don't need to do that. I think that is the death knell for any originator, is someone who avoids that space.
Boy, I fully agree. And I think, honest to God, 5-10 years from now, it's the whole industry. I think everything is going to talk to each other, computers wise. I think that it's all going to be a lot less back end work. And I think that if you don't have some sort of a brand or something that sets you apart, that makes you different, I don't think that you're going to survive in the coming years.
No, I use this analogy and I say, imagine a world where somebody can get their thumbprint or their retinal scan or a face scan and all of their income and assets digitally zoom in, and the loan is underwritten by AI and cleared and approved. And really the whole thing comes to your structuring of a loan means nothing. The machine will tell you what 7 loans they qualify for, the 5-1, the 7-1, the ARM. Your job is to go talk to them. If that's the reality, and most originators go like, yeah, that's probably going to happen, before we die. Then I go, then the question is, where is somebody going to go get their thumbprint taken? Where are they going to go get their retinal scan or their face identification? And if it's not with you, then you lose. And if it is with you, then you're going to win. But what skills do you need to build? What platform, what brand, what awareness do you need to connect to in order for them to pick you? If it's that easy to go get their loan done.
Hey, Siri, what are rates looking like? Or it's going to be, Alexa, get me a mortgage loan with Team Get It Done or whatever, it's going to be something like that. And, or it's going to be like, hey, these 3 people popped up. Which one do you want? And I know that it's going there, and man, it's going to put a lot of people out of business. I want to move on to a couple of things. So, okay, I don't want to be super respectful of your time, Alec. You've been gracious with all this knowledge. I really love it. There's a few questions that we ask everybody. So I'm going to start with the first one. Do you feel like you ever had a big break?
Yes and no. I had opportunities, and I feel like, what's the old saying? Like the harder I work, the luckier I get. So for example, when I decided that I wanted to be more than myself as an originator, I wanted to grow a team. I became a sales manager and I started to hire loan officers. And of course I hired loan officers that would work for me as a 25 or 24-year-old kid. Right. So you can imagine like who's signing up for that? I'm like, hey, let's go join the train. And people are like, no. So I got some originators that probably weren't the strongest, most dominant players in the industry. But, we had a great culture, and we would do sales trainings, and we would learn and we would grow, and then some would fail and, et cetera. But I remember very clearly that my little satellite branch was doing 25% of the total branch that I was connected to. Right. And then as I kept growing and pushing, my branch was doing 50% of the branch's total production. And then my branch was doing 75% of the total branch production. And that manager resigned and went off to another mortgage company. And so I got the opportunity to take on the rest of the branch, right? So that helped my career for sure. I mean, I learned how to inherit people, which is terrible as leaders. Like, it's much better to grow them and attract them and inherit stuff because they don't like you. You're like the new parent. You're like, you're not my mom. It's just terrible. But, that was a major breakthrough. After years of working at a branch location, I got an opportunity to go run Southern California as a market, as a regional manager for a company called iMortgage. And, was that because of my hard work and everything else that lined up for that allowed me to kind of take on a bigger opportunity? But that was, without that opportunity, I wouldn't have had the next one. So, I think that I got really lucky with good mentorship early on. I know a lot of people in 2003 that got into the business and were straight into subprime, slinging prepaid option arms. They didn't know any better. They got some figured it out and left. Some stayed in and hurt people, but I got into this guy who was like, go talk to realtors. And that was probably the biggest, trajectory setting moment of my career, was just good mentorship.
Yeah. So you were given the opportunity, but you walked through the door and you did it. And I think a lot of people would say, well, here, you were given, this branch manager position, but yeah, you also brought a bunch of people on board. You started with 25%, then 50, then 75. 100 was coming at some point, but you weren't it didn't just happen. You positioned yourself to be, in the spot for the opportunity, the door of opportunity.
Well, so Jimmy, and anybody that wants to grow in mortgage, they always ask me the same question of like, well, how do I become a branch manager? Or how do I become a regional manager, an area manager, divisional manager? And I go, recruit people to follow you. Well, no, there's already a regional. There can be two. Like, go recruit people. No one's going to hand you anything. When did we think that was real? Why do we think that's life? Like, no one hands, no matter, even if you bust your tail your whole life, no one turns around and be like, you know what, you worked hard, here's extra stuff. No, if any of that happens, it's a blessing from the Lord. You have to go get it and take it. People, I want to be a great manager, then hire people. Well, I don't know anything. Great. Hire people that don't know anything either and teach them. So it's not complicated, but it's hard. And I don't know how else to describe it to people. They're like, I want this. Well, go get it. No one's going to give it to you.
I love it. It's not just like this thing that just, like, even if it's God, it's a gift from God. Like, look, you still got to work it. You got to actually work the manager job. You got to recruit the more people. You can't just be, all of a sudden you have all this prestige and everything else, and then it just happens easier maybe, but not really. You still got to do it. It actually does get harder. All right. Next question. If you were to do it all over again, Alec, what would you change?
I would have got into digital faster. Waiting to 2018 for me to get really active in digital was, or I should reframe that, for me to understand the power of social and digital. I was on Facebook. I had an Instagram account. I was just posting pictures of my kids and doing goofy nerd stuff. So, but if I could have gone back in time to early internet days, early YouTube, early Facebook, and known what it could have become, I would have put myself out there earlier. Because like we talked about earlier, Jimmy, that you attract what you attract. And so, I'm my YouTube channel, I've got 1,400 subscribers, and I'm proud of it. There's a lot of good content on there. There's a lot of good stuff on there, but I'm like, wow, what could I have done if I would have started 2 or even a year before that? How much deeper could the platform be? Because brand is all about building on prior growth, building on prior achievements. And so the earlier you start, the more over time this thing becomes this behemoth. And then it's just like, well, if someone has to catch me, they got to start back at episode 1. So I wish I would have figured it out earlier.
That's just fire. That's great advice, or not really advice, but I mean, I'm with you. I agree. I wish I would have started sooner too.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time, Alec, you felt like giving up?
No, but there was a time that I thought I was going to leave the industry because I was a little burned out on this Groundhog Day feeling. Because 18 years in the business, you're like, wow, nothing's changing. Meaning the problems are the same problems I had yesterday. I got to solve them again. Especially in leadership, people are our problems, and people bring their own stuff in. And most of the time it's just me and my own stuff that's causing the problem, but sometimes it's others. And I just was like, is this really the end game for me? And so, because I like change, I like to innovate. I like things to be different. I think that's part of what made me a good branch leader and a good loan officer was like, I didn't accept how things were. I wanted to make it better. And so I would come into an environment or a culture or a team and be like, we are different, and here's why, and here's what we're doing. And then you just kind of, as I went up the ladder, so to speak, it just becomes like, felt like more of the same. Because the mortgage industry wasn't changing. And that's really what was hard for me is it was 10 years post-crisis and like nothing's changed. Technology is still terrible. Like why, for the love of all that's holy, is the fulfillment process the same as it was in the 80s? Why? Why is it the same? Why is it this baton and then the baton goes back and forth and somebody drops it always? Like, why? This doesn't make any sense. I mean, it does intellectually because there's regulation and the industry crisis, but every other industry has exploded with technology that's changed the face of the industry, even yellow car. So I was like, this is boring. I want to go be part of something that's actually changing. And that was when I met Anthony Shea, and he's a visionary and a maniac, and I love him. But he reinvigorated in me the desire to change the mortgage space because that's what he wanted to do. And he was looking for crazy people that wanted to do it too. And so I was like, you know what, I can jive with that. And so I didn't want to quit, from a burnout perspective. Or maybe it was a little burnout, but it just the repetition of the Groundhog Day, I was cooked.
Follow up on that. When you started thinking about it, when this was mentioned to you, like, hey, you should do this, and you tasted it really like real life for the real time, like for the first time ever, like, wow, I can not do Groundhog Day anymore. I can actually live on with my life and be Alec. Did you stop ever thinking about it, and what happened from there?
Well, as many people know, if they're listening and they've been in the mortgage industry a long time, it's a very special industry. There's nothing like it out there, in my opinion. So it's hard to leave because, number one, you get to work around with crazy originators and it's a blast and they're maniacs. Number two, you actually get rewarded for your hard work in mortgage, which is really fun. A lot of other places, it's kind of like you punch the clock. And I got paid what that guy paid, and I worked harder than him, but we earned the same money, and that sucks. So you really get this unique space. Plus, we're actually doing, the righteous people in our industry are doing God's work. I mean, we're in the middle of the most stressful experience of somebody's life, and the mortgage person is like right there, and that's a really cool place to be because you can have really big impact on an actual human. And so you kind of look at all those different pieces and you realize this is a pretty special place. And if I'm going to work hard, because I'm going to work hard somewhere, I'm not going to go coast. I'm going to go work hard. Right. Might as well be in a place where all these other things kind of check the boxes for us. And if we can be part of a company and an industry that actually wants to change and do better, then it's something that I can really get my head around. And so in my position too, I'm really lucky is that I get a little peek into, where is the industry going? Where's the company going? What are the future technologies that are integrating? How's that going to really help the field? And for me as kind of a futurist, that's really fun. Like I get jazzed, and I get to have a little bit of like a finger on the wheel. Like I'm not holding the wheel, but I got like a pinky on it. And I kind of can be like, let's go left like a little bit. And I don't want to drive the ship, dude. That's Anthony Shea's job, but I like having a pinky on there where I can kind of nudge it a little bit.
Like, hey, I have some little bit of value to say on this, but Well, okay, just on that too. Do you miss the origination part? And meaning
Yes.
you have a pinky on it. I know like everybody does, but do you the pinky on it? Does that mean that like, look, I'm still on the ground floor. I'm still in the streets. I understand what's going on here. I'm just not relying on it to make a living. Is that, and why do you do that? Why do you keep your pinky on?
Well, I have my pinky on the direction of the company. And so from strategic decisions, product prioritization, vendors that we should look at, new technology rollouts. I've been involved in helping launch our Mellow technology platform since the day it was thought up. I was in the room adding sales culture thoughts to it. And so that for me has been really rewarding from a long-term strategic position. But back to the streets, I mean, I'm a street kid. Like I learned how to play the game going door to door. And I've never forgotten that. It built me as a person, as a salesperson. And I love leading originators. It's my favorite thing because originators have one thing they want to do, get more loans. So we can hang out and we got an aligned goal. How are you going to get me more loans? And if I can actually have an answer to that, then they like me because they know that I'm in the street with them. And so I miss leading a sales team on the street. Like I really do. I miss working hand in hand with loan officers every day because it's like you go to battle every day. You show up and you got to go get loans.
You do.
And so to me, that was like one of the funnest parts of my career was being in the street with LOs, driving business, making sales calls, getting those wins, high fives, getting that new relationship, doing the sales meetings and rewarding those top people who busted their butt and got great numbers. So that for me was really enjoyable. I miss it. And I say that in the sense of like, I love what I do now as well. So I can do both, right? I don't have a desire I'm not quitting and going back to the street.
Right.
But I still miss it. Because to me, that's where it's a very simple place. When you get into leadership and other levels of leadership, you bring in more human stuff.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's part of the deal. We are humans.
Part of it.
But,
right.
But in the street, it's the human stuff's like over here. And how do we get loans? And we just go.
And okay, so that's a perfect segue to my final question. So like, look, there is someone that's trying to get on the Scotsman Guide. You mentioned that you were on the Scotsman Guide all these years. You were Rookie of the Year. There's that person that's like, I'm a little introverted. I get so just used up by all these people. I go to a networking event, I see it and then I just get in my car and I drive away. And they look up to, someone like you who's putting themselves out there and, actually putting in the work and is having a fair amount of success. To the person that wants to, follow in your footsteps, what advice would you give, Alec, to someone looking to get it done?
So I don't want anyone to mishear me. I'm an introvert. It costs me energy to go meet people. I'm massively insecure and I have huge fear of rejection that I've been trying to deal with my whole life. But I am a violent competitor. I don't lose very often. And when I do, I'm going to make the other person lose just as much. It's going to be terrifying. My dad had this thing in college when he was a professional tennis player and they'd play these day-long tournaments, right? So you'd play and then it's a battle of attrition. And he was like, I was never the best tennis player, but every time someone played me, they knew that if they were going to beat me, they were going to suffer so much. I'm going to run down every ball that if they were willing to beat me, they're going to lose their next match for sure. They're going to be too beat up and spent just from the hell I'm going to put them through on the court. And so that's what I grew up with. That's my mentality. So I can't make you competitive, but if you want to win in mortgage, you have to be competitive. You have to take loans personally. All the great originators take their loans very personally. They're not just a transaction. They are very personal. They mean something. That person means something. I'm invested. I'm in the game. And so if you have that kind of killer instinct, the desire to push yourself, the desire to win, the desire to be better, then all the other stuff of your insecurity, your fear of this, your introvertedness, those become excuses that you slough off. And you might need coaching for that. You might need encouragement or support or good mentorship. You might not do it alone, but if you're willing to get it done, the only way to get it done is to get it done. And it's like I was taught, be a student of your own experience. So like you went to an open house. How did it go? What happened? What was the result? What can you learn? You did a video series for 10 parts. Did you get any loans? What happened? What can you learn? And that's the only way we ever get better, is just listen to other people that have done it before you and then play the game and learn. And so for anybody wanting to get it done, the top people in the industry will tell you what they do. No secrets. They'll tell you all the secrets. And then it's just on how much do you want it? And that everyone has to answer that differently. You know, so for me, I have a burning desire inside of myself to be great, to work hard, to achieve, to hit achievements. But not everybody has that. And that doesn't mean you can't be great at Scotsman's. I know some people that are on Scotsman's, they don't give a crap about that. For them, it's serving people. It really is. They don't have that competitive, I need to beat everybody and I'm an athlete, and but they still do incredible numbers because their motivation is different. I think we all have our own different places to do it, but all of us are playing the game.
Let's just fire out. All right. I want to thank our audience for joining us today. And I want to especially thank Alec for spending some time taken out of his day to join us and give us a lot of value here. You know, and Alec, if someone was looking to reach out to you to connect, what would be the best way for them to do so?
Google. By the way, I mean, isn't that the funniest? So Jimmy, like, imagine like we used to have business cards, right? And like we'd hand out our business cards. And now I'm like, if I can't Google you and find 7,000 ways to connect with you, from Instagram to LinkedIn, to direct messaging, Facebook, my cell phone's there, my website's there, email, like, come on, guys. Like, it's not hard.
There's an older generation that's just burning about that so hard. Brother, I don't even have business cards. I don't.
No. Why would you ever have that?
Like, connect with me with Facebook. You can message me. You can direct message me on Instagram, or I'll give you my cell phone. Like, here you go. Like, it's just, you know what I mean? Like, okay, so Google search, you know, Alec Hansen. He has a book. It's called Bypass. You should all buy it. It's a great book. And I'm tempted to end this the same way that you do. I am. I'm gonna go for this. So all right. This has been the Get It Done podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And if you took some value from this show, you know, tell a friend. Write us a 5-star review, hit that subscribe button. All those things make a huge difference in helping us reach more people. Once again, I am Jimi Ryan. This has been the Get It Done podcast, and we will see you on the internet.